Senator John McCain picked a virtual unknown as his Republican running mate. So just who is 44-year-old Alaska Governor Sara Palin? NBC's John Larson reports from Anchorage, Alaska.
Just 6 years ago, Sara Palin was the mayor of an Alaskan city of only 6,000. But she rose quickly to become the state's first woman governor in 2006, and at age 42, the state's youngest governor, too.
With God's grace, we will not let you down, Alaska.
A former beauty contestant and one-time Miss Congeniality, Sara Palin has a combative side, earning the nickname Sara Barracuda as a state champion high school basketball player. That competitive streak led her to beat a three-term mayor 12 years ago, and then to challenge the Alaska Republican establishment by knocking off the incumbent governor. Her parents, who watched today's announcement, say she is no pushover.
She's a tough nut. People don't realize that. She's a tough nut, yeah. Very, very honest, tough nut, yeah.
A lover of the outdoors, she helps out in her husband's commercial fishing operation.
It's enough to stay in touch with the real Alaskana lifestyle.
She was considered glamorous enough to be in Vogue magazine a few months ago, talking about shooting caribou and eating moose stew. She favors more drilling for oil and gas in Alaska, explaining her position earlier this week to CNBC's Maria Bartiromo.
And with Alaska's love and care for our environment and our lands and our wildlife, Alaskans are saying yes, because we believe that it can be done safely, it can be done prudently, and it had better be done ethically also. Yes, we want to see that drilling.
Though Governor Palin rode into office battling state corruption, she now faces an investigation after dismissing an Alaskan official who refused to fire a state patrolman, a man who had gone through a messy divorce from Palin's sister. Governor Palin is a solid conservative, firmly supporting gun rights and strongly opposing abortion. She and her husband decided to have their fifth child, even though they were told the baby would be born with Down syndrome.
I just can't say enough positive things about where we are right now. He's awesome.
Her oldest son enlisted in the Army a year ago, and she says he'll deploy to Iraq this fall. John Larson, NBC News, Anchorage, Alaska.
The selection of Sara Palin did catch some Republicans by surprise, in part because of that investigation into whether Palin used the powers of her gubernatorial office to try and settle a family score. In Alaska, it's known as Wootengate. Mike Wooten, a state trooper, is the ex-husband of Palin's sister. Their nasty custody battle includes allegations that Wooten abused their kids this summer. Palin acknowledged her office talked to the commissioner oversees the state police about Wooten, but denied applying any pressure. The commissioner, Walt Monaghan, didn't fire Wooten, and last month, Monaghan was fired. I asked Walt Monaghan earlier today what he thought of the calls from the governor's office to look into her former brother-in-law.
I've been a cop for a long time, and I know that the people get kind of emotionally spun up during divorces, and even including family members of people getting divorced. So this was kind of, I looked at it as a kind of venting a little bit initially and telling me some of the frustrations I had with this guy. But over the course of the next 17 months, I think the governor herself in one of her press releases said that she acknowledged that either her family or her staff have contacted DPS about 24 times or so about this particular truth.
24 times. 24 times the governor's staff, or, well, first let's clarify, did the governor herself have any conversation with you or any of your staff about this issue?
I've spoken to governor's husband and the governor herself. I've also spoke to her chief of staff, the commissioner of administration, the attorney general, as well as the last one, which was Frank Bailey.
That's a lot of conversations, Mr. Monaghan, and you mentioned 24 different conversations. Can you think of a single other case involving somebody else where it was brought to your attention in that fashion, that sort of high interest, the number of phone calls in an effort to essentially get that person fired?
I can't think of any other one. And I've been the chief of the Anchorage Police Department, which is even larger than the troopers up here. And not once have I ever encountered anything like this.
What about the reports that the governor's family was concerned about issues of safety surrounding this state trooper, Mike Wooten?
Well, that was what the initial release was all about. But in essence, what I heard from them when I spoke to both Todd and to the governor herself was issues about past crimes that came out during the divorce, including an illegal moose hunt, a tasing of a stepson, and which are all not good ideas, but they happened prior and never were reported until the actual divorce that was subsequent to these incidences. So it was like the governor had never been threatened herself. She said that during the divorce, she claimed that Wooten had threatened her family, her father specifically. But again, that was investigated, and again, no new evidence that came up on that.
So in other words, after there had been an investigation, there was essentially no new evidence, and yet you were getting these phone calls from the governor and her staff. Tell me more again about the specific phone call or phone calls with the governor herself. What did she say? What was the exchange like?
Well, on that particular case where she called me was soon after I made the job. I got the job as commissioner, and that was somewhere in the January of 2007 timeframe. And she just reiterated what Todd and she was expressing her frustration with the results of the investigation, and this individual probably shouldn't be representing the troopers and whatnot. But I explained to her, just as I had explained to Todd, that there wasn't any new evidence or what, and that it is. The next time she brought it up was in February. Just a couple of weeks later, she brought it up as I was down at the Capitol, and as she mentioned it then, I told her I needed her to keep an arm's length away from this issue. And if there's other issues I have to talk to, or other complaints, I should talk to Todd, her husband, not to her about this. And she said that's a better idea.
Walt, I understand it was just in July when you were essentially fired for whatever reason. Is there any doubt in your mind that you were fired because of your refusal to essentially remove this state trooper?
I think that Trooper Wooten was probably a very significant portion of why I was. But I'm awaiting for the investigation and its outcome that it has been already initiated up in the state. And I will cooperate with the investigator fully, give him all the emails and information that I have, and we'll see what we have from there.